Okay, so good morning everyone. So today we're going to continue our discussion which is all about the location. So next is utilities. This section will identify the utilities that are payable directly by the tenant and those that will be payable by the landlord, which will then be allocated to the landlord, which the landlord will pay as a part of GOM, or that will be divided between the tenants that actually use the utility. So this section will identify the utilities that are payable is either by the tenant or the landlord. Next is taxes. The landlord passes the real estate tax burden for the interproject to all the tenants through a pro rata charge, which is identified as additional rent. So this is usual. So in this case, the landlord passes the real estate burden ngadto sa mga tenants, and the leases will pay a higher rent because it is ang part ato siya will goes to, or the down payment to the property. Next is insurance. The landlord will also pass on to the tenants, or the pro rata, the cost of all the insurance premiums spent to insure the entire project. So this is where a renter's insurance policy comes in. So a renter's insurance is a policy that covers the tenant, their belongings, and potential liabilities that may occur on the property while they are living within the premises. So the landlord will not be liable for any loss of tenant's property. So meaning, if in case na ay mga wala nga butang or kabtangan sa tenant, ang owner or ang nagpaabang dili manubag ana, unless if simba ko na ay mahitabo nga sunog or mga acts of God or natural disaster, that's the time nga mo help or manubag ang owner ana, which is mo'y nakabutang sa inyong kasabutan nga insured ang inyong mga butang if na ay mga disaster of acts of God nga mahitabo. So next is additional insured. So next is about additional insured. So ganina Krisha tackled about insurance. So karon na mag-tackle pud ta about additional insured. So additional insured, the name additional insured piggy banks on the tenant's insurance and is covered from loss in the same manners and do the same extent as the name insured, that being the tenant or franchise. So additional insured or additional insurance is a person or organizations who enjoy the benefits of being insured under as insurance policy and additional to whoever originally purchased the insurance policy. So nahimo siyang piggy banks, which is if mag-business ka, you need to have this insurance para safety ang mga gamit nimo. If ever man good insured ka, tapos na ay panghitabo, like gidiscuss ni Krisha, na ay murag reimburse mabalik sa imuha tabang kung if ever unsa man gani panghitabo. Diyon, next is furniture, fixtures and equipment, or FFE. So, the list will call out the requirements for the tenants, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So, kani siya ang mga naa sa sulod sa imuhang location sa premises. So, this same section will also account for the use of exterior, interior signs, and will identify what items are trade fixtures, which means those owned by the tenant. So katutong mga butang nga gipalit sa tenant nga nisulod dadto sa ilahang sa premises. Dayon, and what are the real estate fixtures? So ang real estate, those items that when attached by the tenant to the premises become the landlord's property. So in the latter case, the landlord may exercise the right to a landlord lien, which gives the landlord the statutory right to keep the tenant's trade fixtures as security for violations of the list. So diri siya nga section pwede kuhaon sa landlord kung unsa man gani ang kabutangan sa trade fixtures, which is katong trade fixtures, katong tenant, butang sa tenant, pwede niya kwaon kabayaran sa imong violations sa inyong contract. Ano siya? The next is hazardous materials. So the list will be specific in limiting the tenant's right to use, store, or generate hazardous materials or substances. So, salbutan mo lang kay siya nga, ang inyong contract nag-included to nga dapat specific, limited lang ang mga butang which is mag-cost og hazard, which mean kanang mga hazardous nga butang mo nang ikuan na siya didto kani siya nga section kay limited lang ang mga inana nga butang. So nana sa tenant og sa landlord ilanang sabutan if ever unsa-unsa tong mga butang nga dapat dili og dapat naa. The next is damage by fire, hazard, or other loss. This section will go over the rights and obligations of the parties in the case of loss by fire, hazard, or other occurrence. So, kani siya diri kay in any cases daw if the premises is only partially damaged, pwede mo kuan ang tenant, pwede gyapon i-reduce sa tenant ang imuhang size sa imuhang locations if ever kaya gyapon siya gamiton. Like nasunog ang katunga, then pwede pa ma-occupy ang katunga, pwede na i-allowed sa landlord na gamiton. Pero mahimo na gamay ang imuhang locations which is tungod sa damage nga nahitabo. So ma-reduce ang rent as well. Next is eminent domain. So eminent domain also called condemnations. So eminent domain refers to the process by which the government may seize private property. Pwede kwaon sa gobyerno imong private property with proper compensations but without the owner consent. So, mani siya no. Also called condemnations is the power of local, state, or federations, government agencies to take private. So, muna to na pwede kwaon sa gobyerno ang private property nimo for public use. So long as the government pays just compensations, the government can exercise its power of eminent domain even if the owner does not wish to sell his or her property. So next is exclusive use. So exclusive use, it is always worth negotiating between the covenant between the landlord and the tenant for a covenant that gives the franchisee or tenant the right to be the sole and only business in the project that offers the franchisee's good or services. So kaning exclusive use, kaning nga sections, so sabutan negotiating ra siya kay ang landlord or ang tenant mo magsabot ana dili dayto ang tenant may istorya sa landlord nga inana ra ang iyahang gustong like dadto nga locations gusto niya kana ra nga services siya ra may naa, o pwede po na madesisyon sa landlord nga kana nga locations ikaw ra may naa, exclusive ra na sa imuhang negosyo. Next is next is assignment and subletting. So an assignment is a complete transfer of a tenant's remaining lease term. Any transfer for lease than the entire duration of the lease is a sublease. So subletting occurs when you transfer part of your interest in the property to another party. This is known as a subtenant. So as to this case, the landlord has made a business decision ngadto sa iyahang tenante or sa iyahang mga renters, or the landlord will closely control the tenant's right to assign the lease to a new tenant or sa kanang bag-o nga mga nangabang, and will also have the right to limit the tenant's right to sublease the space. So as to this case, with the franchise agreement, so diri na section kani assignment and subletting, diri makita nga ang landlord magkuan siya business decision nga iyahang to lease the premises to tenants and not to other person. Dito siya sa new tenant, which is katong kay gisublease man siya. And the landlord will closely control the tenant's right to assign the lease to a new tenant, and will also have the right to limit the tenant's right to sublease the space. Next is default of tenant under the lease. So this section will cover the landlord's position or on breaches of the lease. So some breaches may be relatively minor, in which the landlord will offer the tenant a limited right to cure the problem, but napoy other breaches which is major nga wala siya, nga there is no cure granted. So kaning default of tenant under lease, this section dili makita ang kanang bitong consequences if makalapas sila sa kasabutan na duha ka kwan. It's either minor breaches or major breaches. So ang minor breaches in which for example, failure to pay on time is one of the example of minor breaches, for which the tenant is given a number of days to cure the date nga gitagaan silang notice sa landlord nga dapat ana na date makapay sila. Mo na example sa minor breach. Ang next is the assignment or subletting of the premises without permission or the closing of the business are isa siya sa major breaches nga hanabitang magbuot-buot kag kuan kanang magbuot-buot kag kuan bitos, or kanang mag-transfer sa imuhang mga press akong i-mention ko na katong about sa assignment and subletting, di ba i-transfer siya sa lain nga person or sa new tenant ba, then dili na siya mitabang major breaches kana dili ka man ang bitaw sa landlord nga lahi na pud ay nagpakuan kag kuan nga new tenant nga mukuan sa premises. Then mo to siya ang major breaches kay makakause siya immediate termination. Next is damages. So the damages covenants may be part of the default covenant or maybe stand-alone article. So the damages, if the tenant dili na section makita ang kwan, if the tenant wala mo follow or ni break sa rules, dili makita ani nga kwan na section. So upon breach of the lease, the lessor will have, or ang nagpaabang will have the right to first terminate the lease and seek damages for past events. So tapuson ang pag-abang og
mangayo og danyos alang sa nagaging mga panghitabo katong mga past events. Next is terminate the lease and seek not only past damages but damages for the loss of future rent. So less any rent paid by a new tenant. So understandable ra kay siya. Next is seek to evict the tenant from possession but not terminate the lease, and then seek past and future damages, or lastly seek any combination of the above as well as any other damages allowed by law. So in most states, if the landlord does not terminate the lease, or if they terminate the lease but seek damages for lost future rent, they have the responsibility to mitigate their damages by making a good faith or attempt to relet the premises through such relating will be under terms and conditions acceptable to the landlord. Next is subordination. This is a legal term that means that tenant's right to possession under the lease are junior to superior rights of any lender to the landlord who has taken a security interest in the entire project. So subordination, this means that the lender can take possession of the project. So if this occurs, the tenant may be required to deliver the rent directly dito sa lender, or may be asked to sign the documents that recognize the lender's superior rights. So this tenant subordination, it doesn't mean nga gikuhaag katungod ang tenant under the lease. Instead, it means that upon notice, they will treat also as a lender. Ang lender, it treat also as a new landlord. Next is holding over. Holding over, this is another legal term of art that refers to the tenant's continued possession of the premises after the lease has expired or has been terminated. So, holding over means to continue ang pagpadayon pag-occupy sa space ay ang pagpadayon pag-occupy sa usa ka tenant sa space nga iyang giabangan or property nga giabangan after the lease has expired with or without permission or consent sa landlord.
So, having said the above, like sa gidiscuss ni Krisha, na some landlords do not provide for a holdover. No, na ay landlord nga dili daw mo provide or holdover. Instead, they declared that any continued positions after the expirations or terminations is a separate breach of the lease for which additional damages will be assessed. So, muna siya ang kanang additional kuan sa holdover. So, next is covenant of quiet enjoyment. Usually found at the end of the list. So, kani siya nga sections ka usually found at the end of the list. It is in fact one of the most important covenant for the tenants. Basically, it provides that the tenant will be able to enjoy the use of the premises without interference from the landlord or other tenants for so long as the tenant abides by the terms of the lease. So, covenant of quiet enjoyment, kani nga section is nakay allowed ka nga i-enjoy ang imuhang pag-abang dadto, which is dili lang ka makadisturbo sa imong silingan, og dili pod og kani siya nga section wala na poy kanang dili na mo interfere ang landlord ya nimo, basta wala lay lang kay gisupak or wala kay breaches gihimo sa inyong agreement, o wala kay gidisturbo sa silingan ninyo nga kuan na ay negosyo. Muna siyang, it is this covenant that an injured tenant will point to if there is a violations of the lease by the landlord. So next is slope certificate. An slope certificate is a letter or other written statement from the tenant that will set forth the tenant's permissions of the current status of the list. So the slope certificate is usually required when the landlord is refinancing the entire project, though it can be requested for many other reasons. So, ang slope certificate is a document daw often used in due diligence in real estate and mortgage activities. So, the slope certificate usually calls for a statement of the name and control informations of the tenant and landlord, the identity of the premises such as 123 street, like address, then the disclosure of the lease commencement date, expiration date, and any renewal options, the status of tenant's payment of base rent, additional rent, and the amount of the security deposit, a statement as to any default by the landlord under the lease, and other information. So, mao na siyang dapat na slope certificate nga na i-set sa tenants para iyang ma-view ang iyang mga activities na himo. Tapos, next is the landlord interest. So, leases usually have a special covenant that state that the project itself is the only interest against which the tenant can collect any damages suffered. In other words, in the usual case, an injured party to a contract can collect against any asset that the breaching party may have. So, mo na siya kung ang landlord interest, if ever na kay nabuhat, isa ka nangabang, isa ka tenant, diyon motong na ay right ang landlord nga mukuha, mo confiscate sa imuhang gamit or asset. So, in the case of a lease, the only asset against which the tenants can collect is the project itself. Given the landlord usually mortgage a commercial property to the greatest extent possible, in practice, this covenant usually means that there is not a ready pile of cash available to pay a tenant for losses. So, next is additional provision. So, like any other contract, the list will contain an additional provision article that will cover such matters as the merger of prior agreements, oral or written, into the four corners of the current written list. The manner by which written notice is to be delivered to a party, or the fact that there are rules and regulations that must be followed, understanding that such rules and regulations are usually attached to the list. So, manang kuanay additional provisions which is nagaidan mo sa law or na may mga tawag na may taas na nag-guide sa inyo ha. Commercial real estate contract provisions consist of term outlined in a contract which might include warranties, representations, and closing conditions. So, next is
the best location for your new business. So, it has been famously said that the three most important factors in the success of a business are location, location, location. So, this is an overstatement, of course, but it does point out how important it is to have a good location for a certain type of businesses. So, most retail and restaurant establishments rely on walk-by and drive-by traffic. So, you may also have the best product or service in the world and still fail if nobody can find you. So, meaning your choice of your location for your business is critical and should be one area in which you focus a lot of research and evaluation to pick the absolute best site. So here are some things to keep in mind as you go through the site selection process for your franchise. So first is, don't expect your franchisors to do the work for you. They will ultimately approve the location, but you need to do the legwork and research. But ikaw as a franchisee, imo ng responsibility to do the research about ana na location. So next is, the franchisor may give you a guidelines for the ideal sites and intelligence from other franchise location to assist you. But if they don't have this information, ikaw as a franchisee, try to find out the demographic of their most successful location and then mimic or copy that information as best as possible. So next is, choose a location that is best for your business, not only that is close to home. You would rather have a longer drive to a successful business than a short walk to a failing one. So finding a right location means everything. So it means understanding the right qualities to look for in a potential space, or analyzing your area, reading about the potential customers, demographics, and considering where competitors are located. And mo to siyang mga important aspects in finding and choosing the right location. So next is demographics and location analytics. So this includes data such as populations, age, income, education, and other statistical information. So demographic mapping is a useful tool for understanding the marketplace. It helps you understand the market by collecting data from various sources to present the business intelligence needed for sound decision based on geography. So demographics and location analytics, this includes the data such, para sa kung gingon ganina, it includes the population's age, income, education, and other statistical information. So simple demographics are a good starting point, but only the tip of the iceberg for the site selection process. So site selection is just a tip of the iceberg when it comes to a demographic report. Any marketing company you hire or marketing strategy you craft in the house will lean on demographics to determine who to market and to determine kung paunsa nimo who to market and how to market to them. Next is, you can use a location analytics service to do an independent survey for the areas that you are considering that will provide more detailed information such as traffic count and nearby competition. So here, location analytics help you to do an independent survey sa imong areas to provide more information about sa imong target market and sa imong mga competitors. Next is, investing in this process is well worth it, since a great location can be a huge factor in the success of your business. So finding the right location means everything. Same sa kung giingon ganina, mong investing in this process is very important good kay ang location ang pagpili sa location can be a huge factor sa pagpalambo sa imuhang business.
So next is partially equipped locations. So partially equipped locations, one money saving tip when you are shopping site is to look for partially equipped or build out locations that may work for your business. So mo na siyang partially equipped locations na siya, kay if ever makakita ka og locations nga naka-build out na, like gamay na lang ang innovations, manang makakuan ka, mas makatipid ka So here are some more tips. So make sure that the location still meets all of the other criteria of a great locations, and resist jumping into allocation. So again, the tips are, one of the tip is making sure that the location still meets all of the other criteria of a great locations, and resist jumping into allocations just to save a little money. So, try na to figure out. I-try daw nga i-figure out why the last restaurant failed and learn from its mistakes. So, therefore, kaning partially equipped locations is about searching o studying sa mga nanay negosyo for you to have knowledge also kung unsaon nimo pag build out sa imong negosyo, unsaon nimo siya pag market, unsa imong strategy nga makalabaw ka sa ilaha, or strategy nga imong i-sell ang imong mga product or services as well. So next is, see if your franchisor allows partially equipped sites before you seek them out. Many franchisors require a completely new build out and equipment package. So daghan daw sa mga franchisor or landlord nga nanay ka nang, kung magpaabang sila, which is ang imuhang locations buo na, wala na kayo kay innovations mabutang or mahimo ato nga locations. So therefore, imuhang yung responsibility nga i-check daan ang imuhang locations or kanang nga building nga imuhang tukuran sa imong business. So next is, have the site inspected by professionals so you have a realistic idea of the actual cost savings. Include your architect, equipment, supplier, lawyer, and engineer, since each will evaluate the site from his or her professional perspective. So therefore, if ever magsi-siting ka sa imuhang or mag-inspection ka sa imuhang locations, mas maayo daw nga na kay professional nga kuyog kay para makita nimo ang mga dapat pa i-renovate, unsa bay maayo dadto nga buhaton, o unsay tama ba nga dadto nakabutang ang katong unsay bay mga wirings dira. That's why nga need ka og engineer, napay lawyer, which is maga tabang sa imuhang pagsabot sa inyuhang agreement, or agreement between the landlord and the tenants. So next is the tenant improvement or TI dollars and free rent from the landlord. So remember that the landlord has probably been in his or her business. So dapat na nato as isa ka tenant, dapat nato hunahon nga kanang landlord kay dugay na siya sa iyang profession, which is nagapaabang og mga negosyante or tenants. So that's why a long time and has negotiated leases which many tenant brokers and attorneys. So TI dollars is a defensive amount of money that the landlord may provide to a tenant that is to be used for the improvement of the space for the tenant use. So usually the amount is expressed as a certain dollar figure per square foot. So example, kay $10 for square foot. If you have a 1,000 square foot business, then the landlord will reimburse you a total of $10,000 and is most often directed by the lease that it be used for build out or construction items such as internal walls, bathrooms, or infrastructure system like grease traps and ventilations. So what is a tenant improvement allowance or a TI? So A tenant improvement allowance, also known as TIA, or TA, is a pre-negotiated sum of money that a landlord will provide the tenant in order to cover all or portion of the construction cost. So naay nga nga section nga ang landlord maoy mo provide og kwarta for construction costs sa ila sa premises, sa location. So the TI is typically expressed as a per square foot, as what I already said. Tenant improvement allowance is a fund the landlords provide to pay for improvement to the leased space. This allowance often pay for costs incurred when a tenant moves to a new property, such as updating floors or window. So next is typically, you will be reimbursed by the landlord after you have completed your TI work or the tenant improvement dollars and pre-rent from the landlord, so or the tenant improvement. So muna siya mag-reimburse ang landlord after nimo gi-complete ang imuhang trabaho and are opened for business. So once you have delivered documentations to the landlord that proves you have paid all of your bills, which copies of bills attached. So katong if ever nag-reimburse man ang landlord, siya man naghahatag og funds sa imuha for you to construct those dapat pa nga i-construct sa imuhang location. So nakaihatag nga document adto sa landlord nga nag-approve nga nagbayad ka, including the bills. So next is you have the lien waivers from all suppliers and workers that work on the project. And third, you have received a certificate of occupancy which comes from the city and county, and which is the prerequisite to the physical opening the doors for business. So the landlord will cut the check. So next is we're talking about here some of big money saving tips. So first is some landlords will give you a free rent provisions in the form of a waived rental amount for a period of time, so you can get up and running before you can start paying. So naaday landlords nga mohatag nimo og pre-rent provisions, which is pag-andam sa imong negosyo bago ka mag-start og opening or muna siya. So next is have your commercial real estate broker prepare a letter of intent or LOI stating exactly what you expect from the landlord, and be sure that all monetary agreements are included in your final list. So next is have the space evaluated before you commit, so you know the actual status of the space and all related system and structure. So most landlords prefer a longer lease commitment and will be willing to invest more TI dollars and free rent when a longer lease.
So next is choosing a commercial real estate broker. So a broker is a person that facilitates transaction between the traders, sellers, or buyers. Think of a broker as a middleman who ensures that the transaction can run smoothly and that each party has the necessary information. So meaning brokers muna isa nga mag-bring sa sellers and buyers together, and kumbaga more siya third person facilitator between sa buyer ug ang seller to ensure that the transaction will run smoothly. So finding a quality broker who is committed to getting you the best location is very important. Remember that your business success potential is heavily impacted by your location. So choosing a commercial real estate broker, you must first thing is interview a few commercial real estate brokers and choose the one that you feel will do the best job working for you. So, if ikaw nga nangita kag real estate broker, interview a few commercial real estate broker and choose that maka-feel ka nga sila tong person nga mo ilahi mo nilang best nga mutabang sa imuha or para mas mapadali imuhang transaction. So next is check their references and ask if they were responsive and aggressive in the site search and negotiations with the landlord. So the third one is the landlord usually has their own broker representing their side of the transaction, but in some cases it also represents themselves. So next is the conclusion. So invest in the time and resources is necessary to find the ideal location for your business. So this is one of the decisions that will impact your business immediately and can be very expensive and logistically difficult to change. So kay nganong dako impact ang location sa imuhang business. It is because if tsaka imo napili na location, it can affect your income and makadungag siya expenses. So that's why it is very important gyud na to invest time and necessary resources to find the ideal or the best location sa imong business. Kay again, same sa akong giingon ganina nga finding the right location means everything. So you have to analyze your area, reading about the potential customer demographics and considering where competitors are located. And of course, always make sure to conduct a thorough investigation or always do a research or get expert assistance to ensure that the best possible scenario for your business. So, ani kadakong tabang ang location para sa imong negosyo nga. Dapat sitawag ani ay kanang una-unaon nimo na unsa ka importante ang location or unsa kadakog impact ang location when it comes sa imong negosyo. Kay pag failed or pagtsaka, same sa akong ingon ganina nga pagtsaka imong mapili na location or kuan kay syempre madugangan imong expenses and as well as maapektuhan ang imong income. That's all. Thank you.